reke tuone kana niturarekodi kaundu tondu muthuri reke ngwire na ukore umerekodi lakini haija record. Iko chonjo ina record. Niaje, I hope mko fiti. We are on day 5 of 365 days of the Bible. Jana was day 4. We did Job chapter 1 to 5. Today on day 5 we are doing Job chapter 6 to 9. And tomorrow we're gonna be doing day 6, Job chapter 10 to 13. This is the Imperfect Christian, hosted by me, Mr. Iningu Victor. Today's episode is dedicated to people struggling with mental health, people who are depressed, and specifically people who are feeling suicidal and feeling despair. Because today we get to see Job as being depressed and being extremely suicidal. It's at a good juncture to just dedicate today's episode to anyone struggling with mental health, anyone who's depressed, anyone who's feeling very down, anyone who's feeling ako chini sana, me included, and everyone else in the chat. Leo, I would love for you to know that today's episode has you at heart, and I am hoping that you will be better sometime soon. And just to tell you, you will be okay. You will be fine. Believe me, you'll be fine. I'm just hoping that life becomes gentler and kinder to you in the days to come. I want to move on to Job, but I am feeling pressed to just share kidogo tu. Remember I told you the first few moments tutakwanga we are sharing something, then now we get into it. But we are in Job chapter 6 to 9. We are on day 5. 5 down, 360 to come. I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of you as well. I insist, so let me just talk about it. Today being dedicated to suicidal people or people who are depressed, I want to also just remember a friend of mine, a brother actually, whom I lost to suicide in the year 2021. And that one, I'd have to say it has to be the most difficult thing I've ever had to go through. Grieving and accepting, believing, learning to live without him around has been one of the most difficult things I've ever had to go through in my life. And today is gonna be difficult because as I remember my brother, I miss him so much. I feel so much pain whenever I think that I could have been there to prevent it from happening. Whenever I think, why didn't he call me before doing it? At least kuniomba ruhusa maybe or something of that sort. And I nawishingi bado angekuwa most days. And it's been difficult, I won't lie. It's been difficult. And so today's episode is a trigger. Not to be all gloomy, but when I was reading today, the person that kept strongly coming back into my mind was my bro, whom we lost in 2021, but it still feels like yesterday. Like since we lost him, life haijakuwa the same. I feel that emptiness in my heart, which ni emptiness ya space yenye alikuwa amebeba in my life. I did therapy for 13 sessions, which kind of like helped stabilize a bit, but every once in a while feelings za kumkumbuka zinakujanga, and just feeling like I deeply miss that boy. like na feeling itu na miss vibaya sana, but there is nothing I can do now. If you're there and you're feeling suicidal right now, please don't do it. I hope you find a way to conquer it and fight it as much as possible. And I hope you find people around you that you can confide in and prevent it from happening. Today I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to do the intro and I won't cut anything out. Sina hiyo nguvu leo. And so it's wow. I cannot even begin to put to words, to put to emotions what losing someone does to you. Sidhani niko na words. Library ya English bado haitoshi ku express how it feels, what it does to you as a person, and the emptiness, the space it leaves in you. And maybe in due time we'll get to talk about it deeper, but today for sure leo ni hiyo siku, you know. But anyway, we're in Job chapter 6 to 9, and we find Job. Neema strong. Leo ni ngumu for sure, leo ni ngumu, but let's go. Job ako suicidal, and in chapter 6 we just see him ranting to and akisema venye anataka tu kukufa. Remember, ame lose all his property, ame lose all his children, ame lose everything, and that was not enough. Mwili yake imewekwa ugonjwa ya vitu painful sana zenye inabidi hadi ajiscratch every day, and he's outside just grieving and just ranting and saying things zenye anapitia. It's a heavy season for him. And in verse 8 we see him saying, "Oh, that I may have my request." You'd think the request is that akuwe tajiri tena. You'd think the request is for his kids to come back. You'd think the request would be something about Kenya anataka Mungu amfanyie. But today his request is not that. Today he's saying that he might, "Oh, that I may have my request," that God would grant what I hope for. And what is Job hoping for? In verse 9, he's hoping that God would be willing to crush him. He's hoping that he would let loose his hands and cut off his life. Job in verse 8 to 9, he's wishing on himself death. He's hoping on himself that the Lord would come and crush him and cut off his life. And so we see Job ako so suicidal, like he's just amechoka kabisa, like he's just so off, ameisha, like life haimeki sense anymore. And anaambia tu God, like na wish tu ikitu itoke iende, like life iishe tu. Verse 11 and 12, "What strength do I have that I should still hope? Hope is gone. What prospects that I should be patient? Patience is gone. Do I have the strength of stone? Is my flesh bronze?" Like mwili yangu kweni ni ya mawe, like roho yangu ni ya mawe. And when I receive this, I relate with him so much, because I remember when I received news of my brother that he had passed on, I remember the pain that crushed my heart. Nilikuwa nasikia ni kama roho yangu imechukuliwa, ikatolewa, ikang'olewa, ikapelekwa kwa kisiagi, ikasiagwa, ikakrashiwa, alafu nikarudishiwa ikimwaga damu. I was just feeling so much pain. The pain is emotional, but you feel it physically. You can literally feel as if someone is, mtu anakudunga roho. That pain is so heavy. And Job is asking himself in verse 12, "Do I have the strength of stone? Is my flesh bronze? Do I have power to help myself now that my success has driven from me?" And so in verse 14 pia we hear him saying, anyone who withholds kindness from a friend. I think samemaliza kuninisa ana respond to Eliphaz who alikuwa amemwambia ma advice but alikuwa anamwambia ni kama wewe ndio on fault. And we see in verse 14 he says, anyone who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty, but my brothers are as undependable as intermittent my brothers are as undependable as intermittent streams, as the streams that overflow when darkened by thawing ice and swollen with melting snow, but that stop flowing in dry season and in the heat vanish from their channels. Like anasema nyinyi mabeshte zangu nyinyi ni undependable sana. Like this person umzae by the way amechoka, alafu amechoka na life yake, alafu amechoka pia na mabeshte zake, na nyinyi hata siwezi wategemea. Nyinyi ni kama mto, kukinyesha iko na maji, ice ikimelt iko na maji, but kukianza kukauka ina dry up. Nyinyi mko so useless. In short anawaambia you are so undependable. Now verse 21, now you too have proved to be of no help. Mko useless. You see something dreadful and are afraid. Like nyinyi wabeshte zangu hata siwezi wategemea. Mmeona venye niko down na mmechanganyikiwa hata mwezi nisaidia. Yani in short Job was just ranting in chapter 6. Nilikuwa tu nasoma vitu niko like aki mtu amechoka tu. Have I ever said, like mpaka anauliza beshte zangu mnachoka? Have I ever said to give something on my behalf, pay a ransom for me from your wealth? Anauliza mabeshte zake, mimi sasa ili miaka yote mmenijua, kuna siku kwenye nishaiambia mnilipie deni zangu, ndio saizi sasa ati mnaniambia. Alafu anamwambia, have I ever told you, the verse 23, to deliver me from the hands of the enemy or to rescue me from the clutches of the ruthless? Like anamwambia nyinyi ni watu bure sana. Kuna siku mimi nishaiambia mnisaidie kitu, kwa hii time mmenijua. So he's so disappointed first of all with his life. He's also disappointed with his friends. And verse 28 we also hear him say, but now be so kind as to look at me. Would I lie to your faces? Relent, do not be unjust. Reconsider, for my integrity is at stake. Is there any wickedness on my lips? Can my mouth not discern malice? Like anatry kusema hii kenye napitia, I don't think it's because of what I have done. Like sidhani inaweza kuwa nimekuwa muovu na siku notice ndio ikwe sana lipia shida zangu. He's just trying to figure out ni nini hii inafanya nipitie all this. But he's saying like I think ningekuwa najua. Chapter 7 verse 5, my body is clothed with worms and scabs. My skin is broken and festering. Pause for a minute. Can you imagine that? His body imejaa vigunyo. Like, oh my goodness. And scabs. My lip today iko na scab. But yeye anasema mwili yake, mimi ili papa kuna scab na ninaifeel. But yeye anasema mwili yake mzima imejaa scabs. Ako na magunyo na ngozi yake iko broken na ina fester. Hey, this is a broken man, manze. Yani umzae enyewe ameumia. Verse 11 of chapter 7. Therefore, I will not keep silent. I will speak out in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Verse 14. Even then you frighten me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I prefer strangling and death rather than this body of mine. I despise my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone. My days have no more meaning. Yani Job anasema the pain is so much that even when amelala bado anakuwa na nightmares. Anasema hii life imemchosha. He would rather die na maisha yake ishe. Verse 20. If I have sinned, what have I done to you? You see everything we do. Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you? He's just trying to seek answers. Anauliza, ni nini nimefanya God? Just let me know so that nijue. Like ni nini hiyo yenye imenifanya nijikute kwa ingori. And now Bildad responds in verse 8. I find Bildad's response to be more encouraging as opposed to Eliphaz. Juu Eliphaz we saw yeye alikuwa na point Job, anamwambia hakuna venye unaweza kuwa unapitia hizi shida zote kama hujafanya anything against God. So wewe ndio shida. So jichunguze ujue shida yako ni gani. But we see Bildad is a bit more encouraging because as you read through Bildad, yes, see it in encourage sana, but it's a bit hopeful for lack of a better word. Verse 5 of chapter 8 in Bildad's response, we hear him saying, but if you will seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore you to your prosperous state. Your beginning, this is where we get there. Do not despise the days of a humble beginning. It's in, I think that can be our first Bible verse of the year. It's in Job chapter 8 verse 7. It says, your beginnings will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. Your beginning will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. This is one of the verses that talks about not despising the humble beginnings. So even us with this pod, Imperfect Christian, this our beginning might seem humble, but so prosperous will our future be. And even in your life and in whatever you do, as your beginning, it might seem humble, but so prosperous will your future be. I pray that gives you hope. Even you who right now is despaired, right now your beginning might seem humble, but so prosperous will your future be. Verse 9 of chapter 8, for we were born only yesterday and know nothing. Our days on earth are but a shadow. Like anatry to kuambia Job, we don't know, hakuna kitu tunajua. Anamwambia, can papyrus grow tall? Verse 11, can papyrus grow tall where there is no marsh? Can reeds thrive without water? Mnajua madhanje, nililelewa Kahawa West, place fulani inaitwa Kamae, na hapo Kahawa West Kamae kuna mto fulani ilikuwa inaitangwa Karurui, and kukinyesha ilikuwa inajaa maji, and madhanje, hizi papyrus kwa Kikuyu wanazitanga madhanje, they will really prosper, but within 2 months kukiacha kunyesha utakuta zime dry. And so hii illustration ilinimekia sense juu nakumbuka kukinyesha tulikuwa tunaenda tunachuna hizo papyrus, we go tunajenga nazo boats, tunajenga nazo nyumba. They are very handy by hizo madhanje. Wamama walikuwa wanatengeneza nazo viondo and things like those. Papyrus reeds, they are very good, but they are very temporary. Like zita shine hivyo, mzitumie jua ikikuja zote zimenyauka. So verse 11 anasema, can papyrus grow tall where there are no marshes? Na zinapenda kumea karibu na hizo mto, kama hiyo mto Karurui iko pale Kahawa West. Shout out to people in Kahawa West, watu wa Kamae sana. Cheers watu wa karibu hapo Kamiti, kwa hizo shamba za Kamiti, na wacheki nyinyi watu wangu sana. Huko tumegrow, tulikuwa tunaenda kuchota maji kwa hizo visima, tumefish sana kwa hiyo Karurui. Tukigrow up, kukinyesha ilikuwa inatoa zile samaki zinakaanga nyoka, tulikuwa tunaenda kuzitaga, tunakula na ugali. So mama, ulikuwa unaacha mama akipika ka ugali na kamboga, wewe unaenda Karurui unarudi na samaki. That's so lovely, so nice. And yes, like life yetu ni kama hiyo papyrus. Like we will utakuwa like it's like ni kama upepo hivi. So there's nothing we know. And verse 20 he finishes up saying, chapter 8 verse 20, surely God does not reject one who is blameless or strengthen the hands of evildoers. Yet he will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Your enemies will be clothed in shame and the tent of the wicked will be no more. So verse chapter 8 is just Bildad trying to encourage Job, which I found to be very encouraging. Chapter 9, Job now responds, and I just want you to read through chapter 9 because it's very poetic. And he says in verse 4, his wisdom is profound, his power is vast. Who has resisted him and come out unscathed? In verse 9, chapter 9, Job is just presenting in the way he understands the sovereignty of God, and anatry kuonesha venye yeye hana kitu mbele ya Mungu, hana chieth, yani yeye si kitu mbele ya Mungu. God is so supreme. In verse 15 we hear him saying, though I were innocent, I could not answer him. I could only plead with my judge for mercy. Like Job anasema, hata kama sina hatia mbele za Mungu, hata siwezi jitetea, naweza tuenda mbele za Mungu nimwambie tu Mungu, naomba rehema zako na neema zako, yani sijiwezi. Verse 17, he would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason. Like hata anaweza amua tu nikuwe na vidonda zaidi na hakuna kitu nitafanya. By the way, I am no one before him. Verse 21, although I am blameless, I have no concern for myself. I despise my own life. It is all the same. That is why I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. Like anamaanisha mbele za Mungu, whether he is innocent or not, haijalishi, because before God yeye ni hana any say. Verse 30, even if I washed myself with soap and my hands with cleansing powder, you would plunge me into a slime pit, so that even my clothes would detest me. Like hata hajioshe na sabuni, yeye si kitu mbele za Mungu. And verse 32, as we are finishing it up, he is not a mere mortal like me, that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. If only there was someone to mediate between us, someone to bring us together, someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it now stands with me, I cannot. So we see Job surrendering. That was Job chapter 6 to 9. We see Job finishing it up, surrendering. Chapter 6 to 9, that is day 5. Kesho we will be doing Job chapter 10 to 13. And we see Job, we were reading from NIV version. We see Job just finishing it up with surrendering and acknowledging that before God, he is nothing. And so I also acknowledge before God, I am nothing. I surrender to him and I plead only for mercy. And I just pray for you who's feeling so low today, that the Lord would encourage you, that the Lord would lift up your spirit, and that the Lord would show his mercy towards you, and that things would start moving for your sake, and that your hope will keep arising. Stay strong, because better days are yet to come. I admit it, brothers and sisters, mandugu na madada, wasichana na wavulana, today was a tough day, but by the grace of God, we have conquered. We've gone through day 5, Job chapter 6 to 9. I look forward to tomorrow. Let's meet tomorrow and see and continue on this noble, humble journey from Genesis to Revelation. As always, baraka tele hadi ufike kwenye televisheni, and remember to stay smappy. That's smiling out of happiness. Cheers.
In 2026, do not look for things in ordinary places. Rainbows are usually in the sky. We never think to look for them on the ground. But today the sky is clouds, but the rainbow is on the ground. Happy 2026.